I stood in front of my house last Tuesday, the same house I spent 8 years saving for, working overtime, skipping vacations, building my future brick by brick. After my father passed away 4 years ago, I invited my mother to live with me. I thought I was being a good son. I believed family meant taking care of each other unconditionally. But I never imagined my kindness would become the very weapon used against me. One phone call about my sister Vanessa and her wedding changed everything. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you are watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below, and if this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Have you ever given someone everything only to be told it was never enough? Stay with me because what happened next still shocks me to this day. Growing up, I was always the responsible one. As the firstborn, my parents expected me to set an example for my younger sister, Vanessa. She came into this world 5 years after me, and from the moment she arrived, the dynamics in our household shifted in ways I did not fully understand until much later. My mother had a phrase she repeated throughout my childhood like a mantra. Vanessa is younger, you need to let her have it. Whether it was the last slice of pizza, the television remote, or my mother's attention, Vanessa always came first. At the time, I accepted this as normal. I told myself that being the older brother meant making sacrifices. By the time I turned 16, I understood that money did not grow on trees. I started mowing lawns in our neighborhood every Saturday morning. I delivered newspapers before school. I bagged groceries at the local supermarket on weekends. Every dollar I earned went into a savings account my father helped me open. Vanessa, on the other hand, never worked a single job during high school. She received an allowance from our parents that was nearly double what I earned, breaking my back under the summer sun. When I asked my mother about this discrepancy, she waved her hand dismissively. Your sister has different needs. She is more social than you. The birthday parties illustrated this divide perfectly. Every year Vanessa celebrated with elaborate gatherings. One year it was a princess theme with a rented bounce house. Another year my parents hired a magician and a face painter. For my birthdays we had a small cake from the grocery store bakery and maybe a few relatives stopping by. I told myself it did not matter. I was older. I did not need parties. When my father passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack 4 years ago, our family fractured in ways none of us anticipated. He was only 58 years old, still working, still planning for retirement. One morning he kissed my mother goodbye, drove to work, and never came home. The hospital called at 2:30 in the afternoon. My mother fell apart completely. She had never handled the finances, never paid a bill, never even pumped her own gas. My father took care of everything. Suddenly she found herself a widow with no income and no idea how to navigate the world alone. I was 28 years old at the time, working as a software engineer for a tech company downtown. I had been saving aggressively since college graduation, living in a small apartment, driving an old Honda Civic, eating home-cooked meals instead of restaurant food. My goal was to buy a house before I turned 30. When I saw my mother struggling, I made a decision that felt right at the time. I accelerated my timeline. I found a modest 3-bedroom house in the suburbs priced at $280,000. I put down a substantial payment and committed to a 15-year mortgage. The day I got the keys, I drove straight to my mother's rental apartment. I told her she could move in with me rent-free. She would have her own bedroom, her own bathroom, and I would cover all the utilities. She cried and hugged me and called me her good boy. For the first time since my father's funeral, I saw hope in her eyes. Vanessa, who was 23 at the time, had already moved in with her boyfriend Derek. She visited occasionally, always arriving empty-handed, always leaving with leftovers my mother packed for her. The first 2 years passed without major incident. My mother settled into the house, rearranging furniture and hanging curtains without asking my opinion. She invited her church friends over for weekly gatherings that lasted well into the evening. I came home from work to find strangers in my living room more times than I could count. But I kept quiet. She was my mother. She had lost her husband. She needed community. What bothered me more were the subtle ways she continued to prioritize Vanessa. Whenever my sister visited, my mother spent hours in the kitchen preparing elaborate meals. Vanessa's favorite dishes, Vanessa's preferred desserts, Vanessa's special requests. When I sat down to eat with them, I often felt like a guest at my own table. Then came the money requests. Vanessa called one evening crying about an unexpected car repair. She needed $1,500 immediately, or she would lose her job because she could not get to work. I transferred the money that same night. She promised to pay me back within a month. 6 weeks later, I saw photos on her social media of a weekend getaway at a luxury resort. When I mentioned the debt she owed me, she acted offended. "I thought that was a gift," she said. "You know I am struggling." My mother overheard this conversation and pulled me aside afterward. "Do not be so hard on your sister. She has it tougher than you realize. You have a good job. You can afford to help her." The pattern repeated twice more. Another $3,000 for a security deposit on a new apartment. Another $3,500 for what she described as a medical emergency. Each time she swore she would repay me. Each time the money disappeared into a void of silence. The total reached $8,000. I stopped counting after that. 6 months ago, Vanessa called with news that would set everything in motion. She was engaged to Derek. They had been together for 4 years, and he finally proposed with a ring that looked far more expensive than his salary as a retail manager should allow. My mother organized a family dinner at my house to celebrate. I came home from work to find the table set with candles and flowers, a spread of food covering every inch of counter space. Vanessa sat at the head of the table like royalty, Derek beside her with that smug expression he always wore around me. The conversation turned to wedding plans within minutes. Vanessa had already booked a venue, apparently. She showed us photos on her phone of a sprawling estate with manicured gardens and a grand ballroom. The deposit alone was $12,000. I did the math in my head as she described her vision. 200 guests. A custom-designed gown from a boutique in the city. A 12-piece band instead of a DJ. Fresh flowers flown in from South America. Catering from an award-winning restaurant. The total budget hovered somewhere around $85,000. Derek's family has money, I thought. Surely they would cover most of this. Vanessa must have read my mind because she addressed the elephant in the room before I could ask. Derek's parents are not helping. They do not approve of me. My mother's face tightened. She reached across the table to squeeze Vanessa's hand. "We will figure it out, sweetheart. Family takes care of family." Then my mother looked at me. The weight of expectation in her eyes pressed against my chest like a physical force. Vanessa smiled in my direction. That same smile she used to flash when she wanted my dessert as a child. "I was hoping you could help with the venue. It is only $40,000. I set down my fork. The food in my stomach turned to stone. $40,000 was not help. $40,000 was nearly a year of my mortgage payments. $40,000 was half my emergency savings. I kept my voice calm. "I am still paying off my mortgage, Vanessa. I do not have that kind of money sitting around." My mother cut in before Vanessa could respond. "You have a good job. You can figure it out. Maybe take out a loan. Or dip into your retirement." I stared at her, genuinely stunned. She was suggesting I jeopardize my financial future for a party. Not a medical emergency. Not a life or death situation. A party. Vanessa's eyes welled with tears on cue. "This is the most important day of my life. I thought you would want to be part of it." "I do want to be part of it," I said carefully, "but being part of it does not mean bankrupting myself." "What about Derek's income? What about your savings?" "We do not have savings," she snapped. "And Derek's salary barely covers our rent. Then maybe you should plan a wedding you can actually afford." The table went silent. My mother's face hardened into an expression I had never seen directed at me before. Pure disgust. "You bought this entire house," Vanessa said, her voice rising. "Do not tell me you cannot afford my wedding. You are just selfish. You have always been selfish." I stood up from the table. "I think this dinner is over." The following weeks brought relentless pressure from every direction. My mother stopped speaking to me except to deliver guilt trips disguised as casual observations. She mentioned how Mrs. Patterson's son paid for his sister's entire wedding. She talked about how real families sacrifice for each other. She sighed loudly whenever I entered a room, as if my mere presence exhausted her. Vanessa called multiple times, alternating between tearful pleas and angry accusations. Derek sent me a text message that I still remember word for word. "Must be nice to have all that money and not share it with family. Shows what kind of man you really are." The campaign extended beyond our immediate circle. My mother had been busy. She told our extended relatives her version of events, painting me as a wealthy miser who refused to help his struggling baby sister. Aunts and uncles I barely spoke to suddenly had opinions about my character. One evening, my phone rang with my Aunt Ruth's number. I answered, expecting small talk. Instead, she launched into a lecture that lasted 20 minutes. Your father would be so disappointed in you, she said. He raised you better than this. I hung up without responding. I sat in my living room in my house, surrounded by furniture I paid for, and wondered when I had become the villain of my own story. A week later, I tried one final time to find middle ground. I called Vanessa and offered a compromise. I would give her $5,000 as a wedding gift. Not a loan. A genuine gift to celebrate her marriage. Her laughter cut through the phone speaker like broken glass. $5,000. That does not even cover the flowers. Do not insult me with your charity. I reminded her that $5,000 was more than generous, considering she still owed me $8,000 from previous loans. The line went quiet for a moment. You are really going to throw that in my face right now, she asked. When I am planning my wedding, when I am stressed beyond belief, I asked a simple question. Why can you not plan a wedding within your own budget? I deserve the wedding I want, she said. I have waited my whole life for this. You are just jealous because you are 32 years old and still single. Nobody wants to marry someone as cold as you. My mother was listening on speakerphone. I know this because I heard her voice in the background. She is right, you know. That was the moment something shifted inside me. The last thread of hope I held for mutual understanding finally snapped. The engagement party arrived on a Saturday evening in early spring. 50 guests gathered at a restaurant. Derek's parents reluctantly agreed to pay for. Despite everything that happened, I decided to attend. She was still my sister. I brought a wrapped gift and dressed in my best suit and told myself that maybe, just maybe, we could move past this ugliness. The evening progressed without incident for the first hour. I stayed near the edge of the room, making polite conversation with distant cousins and Derek's college friends who had no idea about our family drama. Then my mother stood up to give a toast. She thanked everyone for coming. She praised Derek for making Vanessa so happy. She talked about how proud my father would be to see his baby girl getting married. The guests raised their glasses and smiled, but she was not finished. I need to address something that has been weighing on my heart, my mother said, her voice carrying across the room. As many of you know, this wedding has been challenging to plan. Not because of money, but because of family. I felt the blood drain from my face. I knew what was coming before she even said it. My son has refused to support his only sister on the most important day of her life. He has the means to help, but he has chosen selfishness over family. She paused, letting her words sink in. From today forward, I no longer consider him my son. 50 pairs of eyes turned toward me. Some looked confused. Others looked pitying. Derek smiled like a cat who caught a canary. Vanessa stared at her lap, but she did not look surprised. She did not look upset. She did not say a single word in my defense. The silence stretched for an eternity compressed into seconds. I looked at my mother, waiting for her to laugh, to say she was joking, to take it back. She held my gaze with cold satisfaction. I placed my gift on the nearest table. I walked out of the restaurant without saying goodbye. The cool night air hit my face like a slap, but it was nothing compared to the blow I had just received. Uncle Ray caught up with me in the parking lot. He grabbed my shoulder and turned me around. I saw tears in his eyes. I am so sorry, he said. That was not right. None of this is right. I thanked him for his support. Then I drove home to the house my mother lived in rent-free and sat alone in the darkness of my living room. Around midnight, I called my best friend Megan. She answered on the second ring, sensing something was wrong. I told her everything that happened, every word my mother spoke, every silent second Vanessa allowed it to continue. Megan listened without interrupting. When I finished, she took a deep breath. You have been their ATM machine, she said, not their family. Your mother lives in your house, a house you bought, a house you pay for, and she publicly disowned you for not giving her other child $40,000. Hearing it summarized so bluntly shifted something in my perspective. The fog of guilt and confusion began to clear. You need to understand something, Megan continued. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Especially people who would watch you burn without calling for help. I stayed awake until dawn, thinking about my life, my choices, my family. I pulled out the deed to my house and stared at my name printed in bold letters. I was the sole owner. My mother was not on the title. She had no legal claim to anything. If she no longer considered me her son, then I no longer had a son's obligations to her. Monday morning, I called in sick to work. I spent 2 hours with a real estate attorney who confirmed what I already suspected. My mother was a guest in my home, nothing more. I could ask her to leave at any time with proper notice. I drafted a formal letter requesting that she vacate the property within 30 days. The attorney reviewed it, made some adjustments, and printed 2 copies. That afternoon, I returned home while my mother was at her weekly church meeting. I walked through every room, gathering my most important documents, my irreplaceable photographs, my valuables that could not be replaced. I packed them into boxes and loaded them into my car. Then I waited. My mother arrived home at 6:30 carrying a casserole dish one of her friends had given her. She barely acknowledged me as she walked into the kitchen. I handed her the letter. Her face went through several transformations as she read. Confusion, then anger, then something that might have been fear. "You cannot do this," she said. "This is my home." "No," I replied. "This is my home. My name is on every document. I pay every bill. You told 50 people last night that I am no longer your son. I am simply respecting your decision." "I did not mean it like that," she stammered. I was upset. "Vanessa is getting married and you were being so difficult. You meant every word I said. And even if you did not, the fact that you could say it at all tells me everything I need to know." She started crying, then loud theatrical sobs that once would have melted my resolve. "Where am I supposed to go? I have nothing. Your father left me nothing." I kept my voice steady. "Move in with Vanessa. I am sure her $40,000 wedding venue has room for you." I left her standing in the kitchen with the letter in her hands. The next 30 days brought a storm of phone calls, text messages, and voicemails. Vanessa accused me of being cruel and vindictive. My mother alternated between rage and desperation. Extended family members who had judged me weeks earlier now called to express shock at my decision. I did not answer any of them. Uncle Ray texted me one night with 3 simple words: "Proud of you." When the 30 days expired, I hired a moving company to relocate my mother's belongings to a storage unit I prepaid for 3 months. I changed the locks on my house. I installed a security camera at the front door. My mother eventually found a small apartment across town using her Social Security checks and what little savings she had. Vanessa and Derek did not invite her to live with them. Their tiny apartment apparently did not have room. The wedding still happened, though not as originally planned. Without my contribution, they scaled back dramatically. I heard through Uncle Ray that they held the ceremony in Derek's parents' backyard with fewer than 50 guests. Vanessa wore a dress she found on sale. There was no 12-piece band. I was not invited. I would not have attended anyway. The months following the confrontation were not easy. I would be lying if I said I felt nothing but relief. There were nights when I questioned everything. Nights when I wondered if I had overreacted. Nights when I missed the mother I thought I had, the family I wished existed. Megan became my anchor during this period. She checked on me regularly, dragged me out of the house when I isolated myself too long, reminded me that choosing myself was not the same as being selfish. Uncle Ray visited one Sunday afternoon with a 6-pack of beer and a deck of cards. We sat on my back porch for hours, playing poker and talking about my father. He told me stories I had never heard about the brother he grew up with, about the dreams they shared as young men. "Your dad would understand," Uncle Ray said as the sun began to set. "He loved your mother, but he knew her flaws better than anyone. He stayed because he believed that was what a good man does, but he never wanted that weight for you." I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. I started investing in myself in ways I had neglected for years. I took a vacation to the Pacific Coast, something I had postponed indefinitely while supporting my mother. I signed up for a photography class because I had always wanted to learn. I reconnected with friends I had drifted away from during the years I spent being everyone's emergency fund. The house that once felt like a burden became a sanctuary. I repainted the walls in colors I actually liked. I bought furniture that reflected my taste instead of my mother's preferences. For the first time since purchasing the property, it truly felt like home. A year has passed since that night at the engagement party. Vanessa and Derek are married now. My mother still lives in her small apartment. She sends me text messages, occasionally testing the waters, looking for an opening. I read them but rarely respond. The wound has not healed enough for conversation. I do not hate my mother. I do not hate my sister. Hatred requires energy I would rather spend elsewhere. What I feel is closer to acceptance. I accept that they prioritize their desires over my well-being. I accept that our relationship may never recover. I accept that I cannot control their choices, only my response to them. The most important lesson I learned through this experience is simple but difficult to practice. Loving someone does not require you to abandon yourself. Family bonds do not obligate you to accept mistreatment. Setting boundaries is not betrayal, it is survival. I think about my father sometimes, wondering what advice he would offer if he were still here. I like to believe he would tell me that strength is not measured by how much you sacrifice, but by how clearly you see your own worth. Some nights I sit on my front porch and watch the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. I feel the peace that comes from knowing I am exactly where I am supposed to be. Not because everything worked out perfectly, but because I finally chose myself. If you are watching this and you recognize yourself in my story, I want you to know something important. You deserve to be loved without conditions. You deserve to give without being drained. You deserve a family, whether by blood or by choice, that celebrates your boundaries instead of resenting them. The hardest person to stand up for is yourself. But once you do, you realize you were worth fighting for all along. I would love to hear your thoughts on this story. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who expected too much from you? What happened when you finally said no? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story touched you in any way, please hit the like button to help others find it. Subscribe to this channel for more real-life stories about family boundaries and finding your own path. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that they are not alone. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Whatever challenges you are facing with your own family, I hope you find the courage to protect your peace and honor your own worth. Take care of yourself and remember that you are enough exactly as you are.